All right. Hey, how you guys doing today? This is your host, Sonia, the Quantum Liberator, liberating you one subconscious pattern at a time. And today we are going to be talking about the guilt pattern. So, this is something that used to plague me. And I know I say that on a lot of these patterns because I had a lot of them. And I used to always feel like I was being guilt tripped by a lot of people, a lot of different people. But lo and behold, that kept showing up in my life because I needed to look at that in order to train that vibration out of me. So, if you feel guilty for choosing yourself, this is why. So, this is one of the biggest patterns I see in people who are actually the most giving. And what it is it's a nervous system. And this is all, none of this stuff, every pattern that I'm putting on here is not your fault. Their nervous system, there's nervous system reactions. They're your body's automatic responses that you've developed since childhood. And so it's just becoming aware of them, not shaming yourself for it. But basically your nervous system associates self-focus with danger. So when you feel guilt, your nervous system is associating self-focus with danger. So you are conditioned to prioritize others to feel safe or loved. Your boundaries were basically always perceived as hurting people because you might have been guilt tripped by certain family members if you had boundaries. And so how it shows up, feeling bad for saying no, over explaining your decisions, doing things you don't actually want to do. So the cost of this is self-abandonment, resentment, and burnout. And I can definitely tell you that my mom used to guilt trip me, and I used to take it on. I used to feel guilty. Then later on, when I got into a relationship where he was constantly guilt tripping me, you know, that resentment came out, that burnout came out. It was constant self-abandonment in that relationship, and I was just doing more for this person than I wasn't doing anything for myself. I literally lost myself in that relationship, and I had to realize that that was my fault. So it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault because it was my nervous system, but it was my doing, because the fact that I was having these nervous system reactions. That's what causes the other person subconsciously to do all the things that cause my resentment. And so it's crazy because yes, your internal state is what creates, your deepest. It basically, you always wonder why your relationships trigger your deepest wounds. It's because that's what is meant to happen. Like, your internal state causes them to subconsciously act that way. And I used to I used to constantly be like, how the hell, like, how does he knows exactly what buttons to push. Why is he pushing all my buttons on purpose? But he's not doing it on purpose. It's subconsciously happening because of my internal state. That's what it was doing. And I didn't realize this until, long after I left the relationship. And it's not that I would ever get back with that person, but now moving forward, I know what to do in future relationships to understand that it's my internal state that is, if there's something that they do that triggers me, that's coming from my internal state. So I have to look at that. I have to look at myself and figure out what that is. And so here's the reframe. Guilt doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something different. And so let me say that again. Guilt doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means you're doing something different. And so you can train that vibration out of you to stop feeling guilty for doing things for yourself. And so, just for a body awareness, notice what happens in your body when you choose yourself. Is there tension or tightness? So if there's tension or tightness when you choose yourself, that's something to look at, because that usually means that, when you choose yourself, we've been taught to think that it's like selfish when we choose ourselves, but it's not. There are people that are overly selfish out there because they've gone the opposite way, where their nervous system went the opposite way than than the empaths that have been guilt tripped and stuff like that. So, but to be honest, yeah, everyone's nervous system is different. So the people that got guilt tripped might be the ones guilt tripping others, versus uh other people like myself. I didn't like being guilt tripped, so I didn't guilt trip others. And so everyone reacts differently, and it's all based on our nervous system. So you're allowed to choose yourself, though. You are allowed to choose yourself without abandoning others. And this is the work that we do here. So if you're interested to hear more, or you want to talk more, go to my website, soniaachara.com. You can book a discovery call with me. We can just have a conversation. I also do free events for veterans. I have a veteran community that I work with, and we just do a lot of different events. So if you're a veteran, definitely hit me up and ask about that group, and you can join, and all the events that I do are for free. So, all right, you guys have a great rest of your day.